What's up, Josh here. So this is the new iPhone 16 Pro. It's been out for about 30 days, and for the most part, it looks pretty similar to last year's iPhone 15 Pro. But there are some notable changes, which I'll go over in this video, and also answer some of the questions I've been asking, like how useful is Apple Intelligence? How useful is the camera control button? And also, are the slimmer bezels actually noticeable? So that is the first thing we'll talk about, which is design. So this year, Apple made the strange decision to basically make this iPhone a little bit more chonky in multiple ways. Not only is the iPhone 16 Pro slightly taller and wider than the 15 Pro, it's also actually a lot heavier. But also, yes, this year they did slightly decrease the size of the bezels, and also with the bigger footprint, now this is a 6.3-inch display as opposed to the 6.1-inch display on the iPhone 15 Pro. On paper, I feel like that is a pretty significant increase, but in reality, switching from the 15 Pro, I was hardly able to notice any difference at all. By the way, I did come out with a new wallpaper pack. This is the Sunset wallpaper pack, and you can actually set it to change throughout the day. So I've got one for like dusk or dawn, and then this one is sort of the nighttime one. If you're interested in the wallpaper, I'll have links down below. But yeah, that's basically it in terms of design changes. It's still got the same triple camera setup, the matte titanium rails, and the frosted glass back, but there is one additional button this year, and that is, of course, the camera control button. So yeah, this year, Apple added yet another button to the iPhone, and that is the camera control button. But not only is this a button, it's also a touch surface where you can gently press, and there's haptics, and you can also swipe to gain access to certain camera controls. Now, by default, the button does launch the camera, which is pretty nice, but as I engage with the button up here and I start swiping around, you can see I'm changing the brightness. I can also double tap there for, let's say, adjusting f-stop or zoom or different cameras. So I can switch to the ultra wide, 1x and 5x, and even flip it around for the selfie cam. And then of course it also functions as a shutter button. So if I press it in, it will take the picture. Now there are some mixed opinions about this button. Most people are sort of putting it in the gimmick category and are also comparing it to the MacBook Touch Bar, which Apple discontinued. And I can certainly understand why people are thinking that, because a lot of the controls that you can do on the camera control button can be done on the screen much quicker, and just there's less of a learning curve. Because with a button, you sort of have to get used to the amount of pressure that you press in order to access this double tap. But actually, my hypothesis with why people are hating on the camera control button is because the smartphone has always been like a point and shoot camera. You don't really have to change much settings in order to get a good looking result. But with the introduction of this button, it does sort of force you to slow down and really consider all of the variables when you're taking a photo. Like, how much are you zooming in? Like, how much background blur do you want? How bright or dark do you actually want the image, and not just what the phone recommends you? These are all creative choices that casual like smartphone users are really not used to thinking about. And so I think that is the reason why people are sort of labeling this as a gimmick. But let me know your thoughts down below. If you have the 16 or the 16 Pro, have you been using this button, or do you sort of see it as a gimmick? Okay, next up, let's talk about cameras, because there are some interesting updates this year. Now, the first thing is that the 5x zoom is standard across all Pro phones, not just limited to the Pro Max. I have been able to take advantage of it in outdoor scenarios where I really wanted to zoom in and get close to something, like Fleet Week, which happened a couple of weeks ago. I also think that the optical quality of the 5x zoom is actually pretty good, and so there's no complaints there. It's just that sometimes when I'm in an indoor space, I find myself wanting something between the 1x and the 5x, which is the 3x. Another update is to the ultra wide camera, which now gets 48 megapixels up from 24. And this is something I've noticed, it's just a lot more detail in the ultra wide photos, and especially in macro photography, this camera is actually super detailed. But then the third thing they added is 4K 120 frames per second slow motion. Now, personally, I don't find myself shooting slow motion all that much. It does make for a great marketing tactic, but I can probably count on one hand the amount of times I use slow motion on my 15 Pro. But this year with 4K 120 ProRes, I've actually been really surprised at how usable these clips are and the amount of detail that you can get. Now, for this to work, you do have to connect an external storage device. But yeah, it's pretty impressive. Maybe I'll start using it more. Something that I have been experimenting with though is Photographic Styles. So on the iPhone 16 and 16 Pro, when you tap this button in the top right, you now can swipe through a bunch of different photographic styles, or what I'm just gonna call filters. And you can also customize them with this D-pad looking thing down here and the slider. And over the past month, I've actually gotten some really good results out of that gold filter, which I think is one of my favorites. It just gives a really nice and warm tone. And the nice thing with using Photographic Styles is even after you've taken the photo, you can still remove that filter or change to a different filter if you want. Some of them are a little bit more dramatic, like this quiet one looks a little bit crazy. But if I wanted to go back to, let's say, a more natural look with standard, or if I want to switch over to gold, you can see like now this is a totally different photo and I really didn't have to edit it all that much to get it looking completely different. Now, next up, I want to talk about battery life and heat management. But before we do that, let's talk about today's sponsor, Anker. Over the past month, I've really been enjoying using Anker's new MagGo line of chargers. This new MagGo UFO charger is one of the best travel chargers with its unique magnetic folding system for multi-device charging. Being able to charge an Apple Watch, AirPods, and iPhone all at the same time in this slim package is really convenient. And with Qi 2 technology, it delivers 15 watts of fast charging and can even prop your phone up for standby mode on, let's say, a nightstand by folding the charger magnetically. The entire system is really compact, basically fits in the palm of my hand, and is definitely coming with me on all of my future travels. Now, for your home setup, Anker has you covered with their MagGo wireless charging stand. Also with Qi 2 15-watt fast charging and an oddly satisfying 360-degree rotation. You can either use it horizontally for standby mode or tilt it all the way up to even charge your AirPods. The stand actually feels really sturdy and well built, and I really love the minimal aesthetic. Big thank you to Anker for sponsoring this video. Check them out if you're interested down below. All right, so let's talk about something super exciting, battery life and heat management, which are actually a pretty big deal this year. So here's my battery usage over the past 10 days. As you can see, it tends to hover around like, I guess 5 or 6 hours of screen on time, which I think is fine. I personally wouldn't want to get more than 6 hours of screen on time a day. A lot of people are saying that the iPhone 16 Pro's battery life is a lot better than the 15 Pro. Personally, I think it's about the same. Something I am noticing a huge difference in this year though is the heat management. So Apple actually says there is a new aluminum thermal substructure with back glass optimizations that equal a 20% better sustained performance than iPhone 15 Pro. And I actually believe it, especially when this phone is under load. Like for example, if my personal hotspot's on and I'm also wireless charging at the same time. Before with my iPhone 15 Pro, it would get really hot to the touch. But with this phone, it's still warm, but it's not like completely burning my hands. I actually think that this is the reason why Apple was able to bump the wireless charging speed from 15 watts to 25 watts this year, which is great to see. But yeah, these are the small updates that I guess you don't really know, or most people might not care about until you really use the phone and then you realize, oh, that's actually a really nice quality of life update. Now, last but not least, I want to talk about a big selling point for these phones this year, and that is Apple Intelligence. And even though a lot of features are still not delivered yet, I do want to talk about what is here and what I've been using Apple Intelligence for over the past month. So first of all, writing tools. Now, the really interesting thing with writing tools is that Apple doesn't actually allow you to craft a message until something's already there. Whether intentionally or not, that means that you actually have to write something first before you can even engage Apple Intelligence, which if you've used ChatGPT or Gemini before, you'll know that this is different from how those LLMs operate. Again, I don't know if this is intentional, if Apple is making some sort of statement about human creativity, but personally for me, having used ChatGPT and Gemini for over a year now, it seems like a pretty big downgrade, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one feeling that way. Now, another big headlining feature of Apple Intelligence is notification summaries, which this one, Apple did hit out of the park. I think this is a fantastic feature. Basically, when you enable notification summaries, Apple will use their LLM to summarize your notifications. So instead of having to go through each of your notifications, like let's say in a group message, Apple will just give you like 2 sentences summarizing what happened. But yeah, other than that, all of the other Apple Intelligence features are coming probably in a couple of weeks. Stuff like Genmoji, Image Playground, the new Mail app, and an actually smart Siri. Make sure to get subscribed for my coverage of that, but that basically does it for this iPhone review. My take on smartphones in general is that it's actually less about all of the physical updates on these phones that we've come to love and expect every year, but it's now more about the software experience, all the AI stuff, like creating an actually useful AI assistant. And so it'll be interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see how each of these phone manufacturers come up with their own solutions. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. Check out the wallpaper if you're interested down below. Make sure to leave a like on your way out, subscribe if you aren't already, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.